Good morning to one and all. Welcome you all to the daily Indian Express newspaper analysis for the date 6th January 2024, brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy. Let's get into the today's newspaper analysis. Mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming slides. So have a look at it. Okay, let's get into the analysis of each and every article one by one. Bangladesh election and India. So the in Bangladesh, the election is going to be held, and what is the expectation from the India side? So what how important is the election for India is? So this is what the news is. Let's look into first how the news is being related with examination. Under prelims, it is being related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under mains, it is being related to India and its neighborhood relation, which comes under GS paper 2, international relation. And let's look into the details of the news. Bangladesh shares nearly 4,000 kilometer borders with India. So Bangladesh shares the longest border with India apart from the other countries, and it shares the deep historical, cultural, economic ties with India. And India sees Hasina government as a close friend and ally. Why? Because this Hasina government has done many things in the past decades, which ensured internal security for India. That is the reason why India sees Hasina government as the close friend. Okay, let's look into what is the stake for India in the Bangladesh election. The first stake is the national security. So before Hasina government came to power, that is before 2009, the Bangladesh party led by the opposition government was hostile to India. They provided safe haven for anti-Indian elements like terrorist, militant, and also they had greater relationship with the Pakistan ISI. And Hasina had, after coming to power during 2009, Hasina had eased the security burden after coming to power by cracking down all the anti-Indian elements, and also which in turn has secured the India's internal security position. And considering Myanmar's junta, that is the military coup that has happened recently in Myanmar, and its deteriorating situation in the South Asia, it necessitates that India and Bangladesh need to remain close security partner. So this is what the national security perspective in the Bangladesh election is. Secondly, we'll look into the economic ties. In the last decades, particularly in Hasina government, the Bangladesh rose to second largest economy in the region. According to the World Bank, Bangladesh shares $460 billion. Its GDP is $416 billion in 2022 when compared to the Pakistan, which is $375 billion in this financial year. And also at the same time, in 2022 and 23, Bangladesh was the fifth largest export destination for the India after US, UAE, Netherlands and China. And also it accounted for more than 2.7% of all Indian export, which is worth of $12.2 billion. And under Hasina government, Bangladesh connectivity over the northeastern land has got strengthened, and also at the same time inland water connectivity also got strengthened. And the Bangladesh is also important for the economic integration because the Pakistan is hesitating or it is acting as obstacle for the complete economic integration in the Southern Asia. So this is what the economic ties between India and Bangladesh is about. Okay, let's look into the regional cooperation. India like Bangladesh to become a fulcrum for the regional cooperation mostly in the Bay of Bengal littoral, which is linking the South Asia with the Southeast Asia. And this BIMSTECs act as secretariat in the Bangladesh act as the secretariat for the BIMSTEC, and it connects the eastern subcontinent with the Southeast Asian. And at the same time, Japan, which is the closest ally for India, is also investing heavily in the Bangladesh. So this is how this is how the Bangladesh is important from the regional cooperation point of view. And from the allegation of the recently there has been allegation among the about the Hasina government about the democratic backsliding that is happening during her tenure. But actually, the political stability in Bangladesh under Hasina government is helpful for India, and at the same time, if the opposition party is going to come to power, means their stand will be more deteriorating in terms of democracy. So this is one thing, and another thing is she kept the radical extremist force under control, not only, which is very helpful for not only her country but also the India. And there has been allegation in the recent times about the closer proximity of Bangladesh with the China. So not turning to China, Bangladesh haven't until now turned to China at the expense of India. So it is not fair for India to expect the countries which is close to India do not have business with the second largest economy in the world, that is the China. But that business should not come at the expense of the internal security as well as the other interest of India, which the Bangladesh has balanced in the recent time period. So the allegation of Bangladesh having close proximity with China is nullified because of this argument placed by the author of this article. And historically, US as well as other Western countries are very critical about Bangladesh, and at the same time US and other Western countries have closer ties with India. But why? Because the historical reasons of why the US is being critical of for Bangladesh is the first and foremost the historical reason is the Bangladesh tense relation with the US as well as the UK, because during the 1971 liberation war, US and UK played a role in support of Pakistan, which is against the interest of Bangladesh. And at the same time, after the independence of Bangladesh, they also heavily criticized about the undemocratic behavior of the government in the Bangladesh. But at the same time, they haven't condemned the same undemocratic behavior which was happening in the Pakistan. So there was discrimination in pointing out the defect in terms of the undemocratic behavior by the Western countries. So this is also been not liked by Bangladesh, and there was some heated tense situation was going on between them for the past two decades. But after some time, their tense got eased in the last few years, and during G20 meeting also they do have some cordial meeting, which in turn enable the way for easing of the tension between the countries, which is very important from the point of view of India, because these Western allies have closer relationship with India. So if India is going to have a closer relationship with Bangladesh, which is not in like with the Western countries, means surely it will have some impact in the relationship between the Western countries as well as India. So this tense situation between the Western countries as well as Bangladesh has been eased in the recent years, and the major initiatives also been taken by India during the G20 meet. So this is what the news with relation to the Bangladesh election and the stake it has for India is about. So what we need to study further is we should know about the Bangladesh geography, and then the neighborhood first policy of India, and then the Sagar policy of India. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of. And with this, we have reached the end of this topic. Army review its chief book, retired chief's book, and rule that governs writing by the service as well as the retired defense officers, which is being explained in this article. So let's look into how the news has been related to examination. Under prelims, it has been related to Indian polity and governance, constitution, political system, Panchayat Raj, public policy, rights issue. Similarly, under mains, it has been related to GS paper 2 polity, which comes under a subtopic called statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial body. This is how the news has been related to examination. Okay, let's Look into the details of the news. The army has begun the review of memo of its former chief M.M. Narvane, and the Press Trust of India has recently published the excerpts from the memoirs last month. Based on the publishing document only, this review is going to be held, and this excerpts had revealed the unknown detail of the Indian leadership response to the crisis during the uh, standoff with the China in 2020, which happened in eastern Ladakh, and also discussion of various aspect of the Agnipath scheme was also been mentioned in the excerpts. So this is the thing which is going to be reviewed by the committee or the officers. Why the book has been reviewed by the army? Under section 21 of the Army Rules 1954, the serving personnels are not allowed to publish in any form whatever or the communicate directly or indirectly to the press any matter in relation to the political questions or the service subject or containing any service information. So this is the reason why the book is going to get reviewed by the officers. And also the same rule also prohibits publishing any book or letter or article or any other documents which also has the questions related to the previous slide should also should not be published without the prior informing the central government, and the serving officer cannot deliver a lecture on a matter related to political questions. Similarly, officials say the rules may not apply for armed force personnel who writes a book that is unrelated to his work. For he or she could able to write the general work, that is general thing which is other than their work, which they are not prohibited. And if they are going to write a book which is related to their work, and if it is going to publish any kind of political statements or political stand by the politicians, means such kind of thing will be reviewed by central government, or the permission need to be taken beforehand. So does the rules apply to the retired officers, such as the in this case this Narvane? The rules doesn't specifically does not explicitly state the process that has to be followed by the retired officials, the retired officers. In this case it is Narvane, and the official says that the review of the book to be published by armed force personnel can be drawn from the central civil service rules, which was amended in 2021 by Department of Personnel Training, which specifically mentioned that the rules specifically mentioned or bar the retired government servants who served in intelligence agency or any other security related organization from publishing any information related to organization after the retirement without the prior permission of the central government. So under this rule, what the officer are saying is that under this rules also his book could be reviewed. And have other army officers written the book earlier? Yes. Several serving as well as retired army officers have written books on various military related subjects in the past. For example, the book written by the army chiefs include Kargil from Surprise to Victory by General V.P. Malik, retired, and Courage and Conviction, an autobiography by General V.K. Singh. So these are all some kind of books that has been written by the previous army generals as well as the other army chiefs. Okay, let's look into what are all the things which we needed to be further aware of. First and foremost, we should be aware of what is Agnipath scheme, what is the objective of the scheme, and why it has been brought out, and what is the analysis of the scheme for advantage as well as the disadvantage the scheme has. Secondly, we should also be aware of the theatre command. What is theatre command and why it is being implemented right now, and what is the discussion related to it. Thirdly, we should also be aware of the armed force tribunal and the constitutional position for it. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Cabinet clears PRITHVI initiative for ease of research in the earth science. So the news is related to creating a flexible initiative, that is PRITHVI initiative, to look into earth system as one unit rather than the other separate vertical unit like atmosphere, ocean, so on and so forth. So how the news has been related to examination is, under prelims it is been related to general science. Similarly under mains it is related to science and technology developments, which comes under GS paper 3 science and technology. Let's move on to the details of the news. So the initiatives, the PRITHVI initiative, which was recently been cleared by the government, will give the flexibility to pursue the research and use the fund allocated for the different sub schemes related to earth science, and that the period for it is 5 years. The sub schemes which comes under the overall initiative of this PRITHVI is atmosphere and climate research modeling observing system and service, ocean services, modeling application resources and technology, polar science and cryosphere research, seismology and geoscience, and research education training and outreach. So these are all the various sub schemes which will be covered under the PRITHVI initiative. And the new initiative is being provided will enable the government to look into the earth as one unit rather than the separate vertical unit which I have mentioned, like in the case of atmosphere, climate research, seismology, geoscience, so on and so forth. And at the same time it will also allow the implementers or the researchers to take the cross disciplinary approach, and at the same time it will ease the doing research. So these are all the applications of this new initiatives which is being cleared by the cabinet recently. And let's look into the objective of this initiative. The objective of the first objective of this initiative is the long term observation. So by creating a flexibility under the scheme in terms of allocation of resource and in terms of cross disciplinary approach of this initiative, it will enable the long term observation of various units of the earth system, which in turn will be leading to inclusive or the most resilient policy making in terms of the earth science. Secondly, it will also enable the technological advancement in terms of the earth science by looking the earth as the whole rather than the separate verticals. Thirdly, it will enhance the polar as well as oceanic exploration that has been happening in India, and then it will ensure the new model developments to predict the future disaster that is going to happen, and also at the same time forecast the weather related events that is happening intermittently during various seasons in India. And then the knowledge translation, the knowledge that has been gathered from this research, which is going to be conducted under the overall PRITHVI initiatives, will be delivered to society in the form of the common man's understanding approach, so that they could able to understand what is happening in the initiatives, so that they could able to understand the earth as the one unit rather than the separate unit of atmosphere, oceanography, geoscience, so on and so forth. So these are all the initiatives which has been brought out by the PRITHVI initiative, which was recently cleared by the cabinet. So what need to be studied further is, we should also be aware of the National Research Foundation which was implemented recently. Secondly, we should also be aware of the objectives, the structure, function, and the ministries being involved in the deep ocean mission. Thirdly, we should also be aware of the polar research. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Government amends PM e-bus SEWA tender and adds 100 low floor buses. And the news is, so the tenders has been tweaked to ensure that the 100 low floor buses being added to the e-buses which is being provided under the e-bus SEWA scheme, which is being announced recently by the government. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into how the news has been related to examination. So under prelims, the news is related to economic and social development. Similarly, under mains, it is related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development, and employment, which comes under GS paper 3, economic and development. Okay, let's look into why the news has appeared in today's newspaper. Then the center has recently amended a tender for the procurement of 3,600 electric buses which it has floated on the basis of the Pradhan Mantri e-bus Seva scheme. In that, the tender has been tweaked to include 100 low floor buses to ensure that these buses are more accessible to persons with disabilities compared to the one with the standard floors. So that is the reason why the tender has been floated, to ensure that the e-buses are more inclusive for the person with disabilities. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the scheme. What is the support for the scheme? Under the scheme, the city bus operation will be done on the public-private partnership model, and this scheme will support the bus operation for 10 years, and the cities will be responsible for running the bus service and making the payments to the bus operators, and then the central government will support this buses operation by providing subsidy to the extent specified in the proposed scheme. So this is what the kind of support that has been provided in this scheme by the center as well as the state government. And the funding, in terms of funding, it has been allocated a total funding of rupees 57,613 crore, and out of this financial provision, the central government will continue the 20,000 crore, while the remaining portion will be covered by the respective state governments, under which the buses is going to be implemented for the development of the bus depot, which is suitable for positioning the e-buses, and also the charging infrastructure and the battery infrastructure, so to save the excess amount of electricity that is being produced from storage infrastructure. So these are all the kind of infrastructure development that need to take place in the bus depot. So this is what the details of the scheme is about. Let's look into what are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of. Firstly, we should also be aware of before that we have to know about what is the advantage the scheme holds. The scheme will ensure the carbon footprint that arises because of the fossil fuel based vehicle will be reduced, and also it will ensure the inclusive development. Thirdly, it will ensure that India will march towards the climate related commitment which we have made in the United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. So these are all the advantages this scheme holds. So apart from it, what are all the other things which we needed to be further aware of is we should be aware of United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change, its objectives, and what is the current position of it. Secondly, we should also be aware of the FAME scheme, which is being implemented by Department of Heavy Industries to ensure the adaptation of the electric vehicles in India. Thirdly, we should also be aware of G20 climate actions. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Okay, let's move on to today's practice prelims question. Mentioned here is the today's practice prelims question. Those students, those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. So with this, we have reached the end of today's session. Please do like, comment, share as well as subscribe Ganesh IAS YouTube channel, so that you could able to receive the daily current affair sessions notification, and also the weekly science and tech and environmental current affair notification, and the other important current affair session, and then the exam related session which will be brought to you in the future by Ganesh IAS Academy. Thank you.